Wow, look at those candles, the way they burned.
I know.
Whoa.
Must have been an interesting class Saturday night. I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great.
Wasn't that a good class? Wow. I thought it was good. I attended. I was here. I heard him.
Okay, we're on page 97. Instructions concerning the second stage of the Chikhai Bardo, the secondary clear light seen immediately after death. Thus the primary clear light is recognized and liberation attained. But if it be feared that the primary clear light hath not been recognized, then it can certainly be assumed there is dawning upon the deceased that called the secondary clear light, which dawneth in somewhat more than a mealtime period after that the expiration hath ceased. There's a footnote. Immediately after the passing of the vital force into the median nerve, the person dying experiences the clear light in its primitive purity, the Dharmakaya unobscured, and if unable to hold fast to that experience, next experiences the secondary clear light, having fallen to a lower state of the Bardo, wherein the Dharmakaya is dimmed by karmic obscurations. According to one's good karma or bad karma, the vital force floweth down into either the right or left nerve, and goeth out through any of the apertures of the body. Then cometh a lucid condition of the mind. There's a footnote. The translator has added the following comment. The vital force passing from the navel psychic nerve center and the principle of consciousness passing from the brain psychic nerve center unite in the heart psychic nerve center, and in departing thence from the body normally through the aperture of Brahma, produce in the dying person a state of ecstasy of the greatest intensity.
Okay, let's stop there for just a second. Does everybody know what that means? Read that again, would you, Sue?
Mm-hmm. The vital force passing from the navel psychic nerve center and the principle of consciousness passing from the brain psychic nerve center unite in the heart psychic nerve center, and in departing thence from the body, normally through the aperture of Brahma, produce in the dying person a state of ecstasy of the greatest intensity.
Okay, that aperture's up here, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm just making sure that yeah, that's good that you say because everybody that's very good that you said that. And the essence or the consciousness comes out of not the thinking brain or anything like that, the top of the head, and the officiant can usually recognize this and realize that that's happening. But the thing that is important for everybody to learn before they die is that the clear light is a state of ecstasy. It's a state of ecstasy. And when you have that state of ecstasy, you don't have any eyes, okay, when you have spirit eyes. But you're sort of not necessarily looking like you look right now because your body is dead, and your eyes are more normally the funeral home or the officiant pulls your eyelids down, right, Ron? So you're not looking out there. And as you come out, you have this ecstasy, and so it's a feeling that you see. And until you experience it, you probably won't realize seeing the feeling. But you can experience it in this lifetime. You can experience seeing the feeling while you're alive now before you die, if you choose to do that. And that's why you need to practice your meditations. Okay.
The succeeding stage is less intense. In the first or primary stage is experienced the primary clear light. In the second stage, the secondary clear light. A ball sent bounding reaches its greatest height at the first bound. The second bound is lower, and each succeeding bound is still lower.
Unless it's the Super Bowl.
Until the ball comes to rest. Similarly, it is with the consciousness principle at the death of a human body. Its first spiritual bound, directly upon quitting the earth plane body, is the highest. The next is lower. Finally, the force of karma having spent itself in the after-death state, the consciousness principle comes to rest. A womb is entered, and then comes rebirth in this world. To say that the state of the primary clear light endureth for a meal-time period would depend upon the good or bad condition of the nerves, and also whether there hath been previous practice or not in the setting face to face. When the consciousness principle getteth outside the body, it saith to itself, Am I dead, or am I not dead? It cannot determine. It seeth its relatives and connections as it had been used to seeing them before. It even heareth the wailings. The terrifying karmic illusions have not yet dawned, nor have the frightful apparitions or experiences caused by the lords of death yet come. I don't think that's interesting. Is that important to read? The plural form is allowable and preferable here. Okay. During this interval, the directions are to be applied by the Lama or reader. There are those devotees of the perfected stage and of the visualizing stage. If it be one who was in the perfected stage, then call him thrice by name and repeat over and over again the above instructions of setting face to face with the clear light. If it be one who was in the visualizing stage, then read out to him the introductory descriptions and the text of the meditation on his tutelary deity, and then say, there's a footnote about that, and after he, the dying person, ought to require the apostles, the martyrs, the confessors, and the virgins, and in special all the saints that he most ever loved ever. O thou of noble birth, meditate upon thine own tutelary deity. Here the deity's name is to be mentioned by the reader. And then there's a footnote. The favorite deity of the deceased is the tutelary, usually one of the Buddhas or Bodhisattvas, of whom Shenrazi is the most popular. Do not be distracted. Earnestly concentrate thy mind upon thy tutelary deity. Meditate upon him as if he were the reflection of the moon in water, apparent yet inexistent in itself.
Can I interrupt at this point? Tutelary deities. Those are the deities that can take you to the heaven worlds. And so let's just say if you were a Christian and you wanted to go to Christ's heaven world, you would probably meditate on Christ. And that's which would take you there. If you were a Hindu, you would probably meditate, or the name of Krishna would be repeated, and you would call upon that heaven world. If you were a Buddhist, you would call upon one of the Buddhas, the names of the Buddhas. If you weren't any of those, you would probably call upon the name of the guru that initiated you into your meditation to find that path to where you're going, if that's what you wanted to do. But you have all those options, and you probably ought to put it in your spiritual will what your option is.
Meditate upon him as if he were a being with a physical body. So saying, the reader will impress it. If the deceased be of the common folk, say, meditate upon the great compassionate Lord. And there is a footnote. Great compassionate Lord, synonymous with so-and-so. By thus being set face to face, even those who would not be expected to recognize the Bardo unaided are undoubtedly certain to recognize it. Persons who while living have been set face to face with the reality by a guru, yet who have not made themselves familiar with it, will not be able to recognize the Bardo clearly by themselves. Either a guru or a brother in the faith will have to impress vividly such persons. And then there's a footnote. A person may have heard a detailed description of the art of swimming and yet never have tried to swim. Suddenly thrown into water, he finds himself unable to swim. So, with those who have been taught the theory of how to act in the time of death and have not applied through yogic practices the theory, they cannot maintain unbroken continuity of consciousness. They grow bewildered at the changed conditions and fail to progress or to take advantage of the opportunity offered by death unless upheld and directed by a living guru. Even with all that a guru can do, they ordinarily, because of bad karma, fail to recognize the Bardo as such. There may be even those who have made themselves familiar with the teachings, yet who, because of the violence of the disease causing death, may be mentally unable to withstand illusions. For such also this instruction is absolutely necessary. Again, there are those who, although previously familiar with the teachings, have become liable to pass into the miserable states of existence, owing to breach of vows or failure to perform essential obligations honestly. To them this instruction is indispensable. If the first stage of the Bardo hath been taken by the forelock, that is best. But if not, by application of this distinct recalling to the deceased, while in the second stage of the Bardo his intellect is awakened and attaineth liberation. While on the second stage of the Bardo one's body is of the nature of that called the shining illusory body. There's a footnote, pure or shining illusory body. This is the ethereal counterpart of the physical body of the earth plane, the astral body of theosophy. Not knowing whether he be dead or not, a state of lucidity cometh to the deceased. Another footnote. With the departure of the consciousness principle from the human body, there comes a psychic thrill which gives way to a state of lucidity. If the instructions be successively applied to the deceased while he is in that state, then by the meeting of the mother reality and the offspring reality, karma controlleth not. And there's a couple footnotes. Mother and offspring reality, or truth. The offspring truth is that realized in this world through practicing deep meditations. The mother truth is the primal or fundamental truth experienced only after death, whilst the knower is in the Bardo state of equilibrium, ere karmic propensities have erupted into activity. What a photograph is compared to the object photographed, the offspring reality is to the mother reality. And the other one, karma is unable to turn the mouth or head. The figure implied being that of a rider controlling a horse with a bridle and bit. In the Tantra of the Great Liberation, there is this similar passage. The man blinded by the darkness of ignorance, the fool caught in the meshes of his actions, and the illiterate man, by listening to this great Tantra, are released from the bonds of karma. I've got to find my place. Like the sun's rays, for example, dispelling the darkness, the clear light on the path dispelleth the power of karma. That which is called the second stage of the Bardo dawneth upon the thought body, the mental body, the desire body, or the thought body. The knower hovereth within those places to which its activities had been limited. If at this time this special teaching be applied efficiently, then the purpose will be fulfilled. For the karmic illusions will not have not come yet, and therefore he, the deceased, cannot be turned hither and thither from his aim of achieving enlightenment. So after they've died, they go to those places where they've been used to being.
Right. Or
Even
they-
if their body is somewhere?
Yeah, even if their body's somewhere else, they go there. Like say if you're from Salt Lake City and you die in Russia, you go to Salt Lake City.
Because that's what's familiar.
That's what's familiar. Unless you've decided not to do that prior to your death. You can choose parents and incarnation locations. You know, parents that are alive and young and stuff like that are getting ready to have babies when you're dying. You could choose parents and a place to incarnate. You'd go there.
Oh, okay.
If you have the will.
Yeah. Part 2. The Bardo of the Experiencing of Reality. Introductory instructions concerning the experiencing of reality during the third stage of the Bardo, called the Chonyad Bardo, when the karmic apparitions appear. But even though the primary clear light be not recognized, the clear light of the second Bardo being recognized, liberation will be attained. If not liberated even by that, then that called the third Bardo, or the Chonyad Bardo, dawneth. In this third stage of the Bardo, the karmic illusions come to shine. It is very important that this great setting face to face of the Chonyad Bardo be read. It hath much power, and can do much good. About this time the deceased can see that the share of food is being set aside, that the body is being stripped of its garments, that the place of sleeping rug of the sleeping rug is being swept. The references are 1. To share of food, the share of food being set aside for the deceased during the funeral rites. 2. To his corpse being prepared for the shroud. 3. To his bed or sleeping place.
At this time, if you're going to be mummified, you'd probably be experiencing that.
I was going to say, are those signs that you might be dead? You got to watch.
And then the temple officiant would be responsible for you during the mummification. Tell you what's happening to you. And all that's found inside the Egyptian Book of the Dead. The different, organs and stuff like that.
Can hear all the weeping and wailing of his friends and relatives, and although he can see them and can hear them calling upon him, they cannot hear him calling upon them, so he goeth away displeased. At that time sounds, lights, and rays, all three, are experienced. These awe, frighten, and terrify, and cause much fatigue. At this moment, this setting face to face with the Bardo during the experiencing of reality is to be applied.
Question.
Uh-huh.
Is that what Iraq is going through? That Bardo? Shock and awe.
Shock and awe.
I mean, that's true though. It is sad, but it's reality.
Let's see. Call the deceased by name and correctly and distinctly explain to him as follows. O nobly born, listen with full attention without being distracted. There are 6 states of Bardo, namely the natural state of Bardo while in the womb. There's intermediate state or state of uncertainty of the place of birth or while in the womb. The Bardo of the dream state, and there's a footnote. Intermediate state or state of uncertainty during the experiencing of the dream state. The Bardo of ecstatic equilibrium while in deep meditation. And intermediate state or state of uncertainty during the experiencing of dhyana meditation in samadhi, ecstatic equilibrium. The Bardo of the moment of death. Intermediate state or state of uncertainty of the dying moment or moment of death. Boy, there's a lot of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like it, doesn't it?
The Bardo during the experiencing of reality. Intermediate state or state of uncertainty during the experiencing of reality. The Bardo of the inverse process of sansaric existence. Intermediate state or state of uncertainty in the inverse process of its sansaric existence. the state wherein the knower is seeking rebirth. There are the 6. O nobly born, thou wilt experience 3 bardos, the bardo of the moment of death, the bardo during the experiencing of reality, and the bardo while seeking rebirth. Of these 3, up to yesterday, thou hast experienced the bardo of the moment of death. Although the clear light of reality dawned upon thee, thou wert unable to hold on, and so thou hast to wander here. Now henceforth thou art going to experience the other 2, the Chonyat Bardo and the Sidpa Bardo. Thou wilt pay undistracted attention to that with which I am about to set thee face to face, and hold on. O nobly born, that which is called death hath now cometh. Thou art departing from this world, but thou art not the only one. Death cometh to all. Do not cling in fondness and weakness to this life. Even though thou clingest out of weakness, thou hast not the power to remain here. Thou wilt gain nothing more than wandering in this samsara. And there's a footnote, a thing whirling round, a whirligig. Be not attached to this world. Be not weak. Remember the precious Trinity. And they have a footnote, that is the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. Sangha.
And I would say it's the A, B, and C.
O nobly born, whatever fear and terror may come to thee in the Chonyat Bardo, forget not these words, and bearing their meaning at heart go forwards. In them lieth the vital secret of recognition. Alas, when the uncertain experiencing of reality is dawning upon me here. There's a footnote. Reality is experienced or glimpsed in a state of uncertainty because the knower experiences it through the Bardo counterpart of the illusory perceptive faculties of the earth-plane body, and not through the unobscured, supramundane consciousness of the pure Dharmakaya state, wherein there can be no Bardo consciousness. Oh, no. There can be no Bardo. Okay. With every thought of fear or terror or awe for all apparitional appearances set aside, may I recognize whatever visions appear as the reflections of mine own consciousness. May I know them to be of the nature of apparitions in the Bardo, when at this all-important moment of opportunity of achieving a great end, may I not fear the bands of peaceful and wrathful deities, mine own thought forms. Repeat thou these verses clearly, and remembering their significance as thou repeatest them, go forwards, O nobly born. Thereby, whatever visions of awe or terror appear, recognition is certain, and forget not this vital secret art lying therein. O nobly born, when thy body and mind were separating, thou must have experienced a glimpse of the pure truth, subtle, sparkling, bright, dazzling, glorious, and radiantly awesome, in appearance like a mirage moving across the landscape in springtime in one continuous stream of vibrations. Be not daunted thereby, nor terrified, nor awed. That is the radiance of thine own true nature. Recognize it. From the midst of that radiance, the natural sound of reality, reverberating like 1,000 thunders simultaneously sounding, will come. That is the natural sound of thine own real self, but not daunted thereby, nor terrified, nor awed. The body which thou hast now is called the thought body of propensities. And there's a footnote, mind body or thought body, habit, born of samsaric or worldly existence. Since thou hast not a material body of flesh and blood, whatever may come, sounds, lights, or rays, are all three unable to harm thee. Thou art incapable of dying. It is quite sufficient for thee to know that these apparitions are thine own thought forms. Recognize this to be the Bardo. O nobly born, if thou dost not recognize thine own thought forms, whatever of meditation or of devotion thou mayst have performed while in the human world. If thou hast not met with this present teaching, the lights will daunt thee, the sounds will awe thee, and the rays will terrify thee. Shouldst thou not know this all-important key to the teachings, not being able to recognize the sounds, lights, and rays, thou wilt have to wander in the samsara. The dawning of the peaceful deities from the 1st to the 7th day. Assuming that the deceased is karmically bound, as the average departed one is, to pass through the 49 days of the Bardo existence, despite the very frequent settings face to face, the daily trials and dangers which he must meet and attempt to triumph over during the first 7 days wherein dawn the peaceful deities, are next explained to him in detail. The first day, judging from the text, being reckoned from the time in which normally he would be expected to wake up to the fact that he is dead and on the way back to rebirth, or about 3½ to 4 days after death. The first day. O nobly born, thou hast been in a swoon during the last 3½ days. As soon as thou art recovered from this swoon, thou wilt have the thought, what hath happened? Act so that thou wilt recognize the Bardo. At that time, all the samsara will be in revolution. And there's a footnote. That is to say, phenomena or phenomenal experiences as experienced when in the human world will be experienced in quite another way in the Bardo world, so that to one just dead they will seem to be in revolution or confusion. Hence the warning to the deceased, who must accustom himself to the after-death state as a babe must accustom itself after birth to our world. And the phenomenal appearances that thou wilt see then will be the radiances and the deities. Footnote. At this point, where the marvelous Bardo visions begin to dawn, the student, in attempting to rationalize them, should ever keep in mind that this treatise is essentially esoteric, being in most parts, especially from here onwards, allegorical and symbolical of psychic experiences in the after-death state. The whole heavens will appear deep blue. Then, from the central realm, called the spreading forth of the seed, the Bhagavan Vairochana, white in color, and there's a footnote. He literally means in shapes making visible. Hence, he is the manifester of phenomena. The wheel he holds symbolizes sovereign power. His title, Bhagavan, applied to many other of the deities to follow hereinafter, meaning one possessed of dominion, or of the 6 powers, or the victorious, qualifies him as being a Buddha, i.e. one who has conquered or has dominion over samsaric or worldly existence. As the central Dhyana Buddha, Vairochana is the highest path to enlightenment of the esoteric school. Like the central sun surrounded by the 4 Dhyana Buddhas of the 4 cardinal directions, who dawn on the 4 succeeding days, he symbolizes the one truth surrounded by its 4 constituents or elements. As the source of all organic life, in him all things, visible and invisible, have their consummation and absorption. The rest of this. White in color and seated upon a lion throne, bearing an 8-spoked wheel in his hand, and embraced by the mother of the space of heaven, will manifest himself to thee. There's a footnote. The mother is the female principle of the universe, the father, Vairochana, the seed of all that is. It is the aggregate of matter resolved into its primordial state, which is the blue light. Another footnote here, the block print reads, it is the aggregate of consciousness resolved into its primordial state, which is the blue light. In our manuscript, the aggregate of consciousness shines as a white light in relationship to Vajrasattva on the 2nd day. The wisdom of the Dharmadhatu, blue in color, shining, transparent, glorious, dazzling, from the heart of Vairochana as the father-mother. Another footnote. Here, as in parallel passages following, the chief deity personifies in himself the female as well as the male principle of nature, and hence is called the Father-Mother, depicted as described by the text in appropriate symbolic colors on the corresponding illuminated folio. Okay. Oh, but the next part. As the Divine Father and the Divine Mother in union, i.e. in divine at one-ment. Vairocana, from the heart of Vairocana, as the Father-Mother will shoot forth and strike against thee with a light so radiant that thou wilt scarcely be able to look at it. Along with it, there will also shine a dull white light from the Devas, which will strike against thee in thy front. Thereupon, because of the power of bad karma, the glorious blue light of the wisdom of the Dharma Dhatu will produce in thee fear and terror, and thou wilt wish to flee from it. Thou wilt beget a fondness for the dull white light of the Devas. At this stage thou must not be awed by the divine blue light, which will appear shining, dazzling, and glorious, and be not startled by it. This is the light of the Tathagata. I don't know how you say that. And it says the meaning is he who hath gone that same way, or one who hath reached the goal, nirvana, a Buddha, called the light of the wisdom of the Dharma Dhatu. Put thy faith in it, believe in it firmly, and pray unto it, thinking in thy mind that it is the light proceeding from the heart of the Bhagavan Vairocana, coming to receive thee while in the dangerous ambuscade of the Bardo. And it means ambuscade is narrow passage or ambush. It's a good word. That light is the light of the grace of Vairocana. Be not fond of the dull white light of the Devas. Be not attached to it. Be not weak. If thou be attached to it, thou wilt wander into the abodes of the Devas and be drawn into the world of the 6 lokas. That is an interruption to obstruct thee on the path of liberation. Look not at it. Look at the bright blue light in deep faith. Put thy whole thought earnestly upon Vairocana and repeat after me this prayer. Alas, when wandering in the samsara, because of intense stupidity, on the radiant light path of the Dharma Dhatu wisdom, may I be led by the Bhagavan Vairocana. May the Divine Mother of infinite space be my rear guard. May I be led safely across the fearful ambush of the Bardo. May I be placed in the state of the all-perfect Buddhahood. Another footnote. The following instructions to the dying person and the prayer from the craft to know well to die. He ought afterwards, if he may, to call on the holy angels in saying, Ye spirits of heaven, angels much glorious, I beseech you that you will be assistant, present with me, that now beginneth to depart, and that ye deliver me mightily from the awaits and fallacies of mine adversaries, and that it please you to receive my soul into your company. The principal, my leader and my good angel, which my own Lord art deputed to be my warder and keeper, I pray and require thee that thou now aid and help me. Praying thus in intense humble faith, thou wilt merge in a halo of rainbow light into the heart of Vairocana and obtain Buddhahood in the Sambhoga Kaya, in the central realm of the densely packed. There's a footnote. I.e., the seed of all universal forces and things are densely packed together therein, also called in Tibetan Agming, or no down, the realm whence there is no fall, the state leading into nirvana. It is preeminently the realm of the Buddhas. The second day. But if notwithstanding this setting face to face, through power of anger or obscuring karma, one should be startled at the glorious light and flee, or be overcome by illusions, despite the prayer on the second day, Vajrasattva and his attendant deities, as well as one's evil deeds meriting hell, will come to receive one. Thereupon the setting face to face is calling the deceased by name thus. O nobly born, listen undistractedly. On the second day the pure form of water will shine as a white light. At that time, from the deep blue eastern realm of preeminent happiness, the Bhagavan Akshobhya as Vajrasattva, blue in color. Okay, I'm going to read this first footnote. This Akshobhya, or whatever, the Dhyana Buddha of the eastern direction here, as throughout the text, appears as Vajrasattva, the divine heroic minded, or indestructible minded, his Sambhogakaya, or adorned active reflex. Vajradhara, the indestructible or steadfast holder, is also a reflex of this same person, and both reflexes are very important deities of the esoteric school. In his hand, a 5-pronged dorja, and a dorja is the Lomaic scepter, a type of the thunderbolt of India, Jupiter. Seated upon an elephant throne and embraced by the mother Maimaki. There's another one. This is the Sanskrit form as incorporated in our Tibetan text. Here the block print, evidently in error, contains the Tibetan meaning she of the Buddha eye, who in our manuscript text comes with Ratna Sambhava. Well, this is just some sort of dispute. I'm not going to worry about that. Will appear to thee attended by the Bodhisattvas. Oh, Kshitigarbha. That's a guess. Womb or matrix of the earth. And Maitreya, love, the Buddha to come, who will reform mankind through the power of divine love. With the female bodhisattvas, Lamesa and Lasima and Pushpema, Pema. These are corrupt Sanskrit forms incorrupted in our manuscript, their names. Their Tibetan equivalents are respectively something meaning bell, and the other one, she who offers blossoms. Pushpe, depicted holding a blossom in her hand, is a personification of blossoms. Laisya, bell, depicted holding a mirror in a coquettish attitude, personifies beauty. These 6 Bodic deities will appear to thee. The aggregate of thy principle of consciousness, there's another footnote. Aggregate of consciousness principle, the knower. The block print contains in the place of this aggregate of the body or bodily aggregate. The aggregate of thy principle of consciousness, being in its pure form, which is the mirror-like wisdom, will shine as a bright, radiant white light from the heart of Vajrasattva, the father-mother, with such dazzling brilliancy and transparency that thou wilt scarcely be able to look at it, and will strike against thee. And a dull, smoke-colored light from hell will shine alongside the light of the mirror-like wisdom, and will also strike against thee. Thereupon, through the power of anger, thou wilt beget fear and be startled at the dazzling white light, and wilt wish to flee from it. Thou wilt beget a feeling of fondness for the dull smoke-colored light from hell. Act then so that thou wilt not fear that bright, dazzling, transparent white light. Know it to be wisdom. Put thy humble and earnest faith in it. That is the light of the grace of the Bhagavan Vajrasattva. Think with faith, I will take refuge in it and pray. That is the Bhagavan Vajrasattva. All those V's. Coming to receive thee and to save thee from the fear and terror of the Bardo. Believe in it, for it is the hook of the rays of grace of Vajrasattva. There's a footnote. The rays of divine grace are a hook of salvation to catch hold of the deceased and drag him away from the dangers of the Bardo. Sometimes each ray is thought of as ending in a hook, just as each ray emanating from the sun god Ra, and descending as a grace ray upon a devotee is depicted in ancient temples of Egypt as ending in a hand. Similarly, the Christian thinks of the saving grace of God. Be not fond of the dull smoke-colored light from hell. That is the path which openeth out to receive thee because of the power of accumulated evil karma from violent anger. If thou be attracted by it, thou wilt fall into the hell worlds, and, falling therein, thou wilt have to endure unbearable misery, whence there is no certain time of getting out. That being an interruption to obstruct thee on the path of liberation, look not at it, and avoid anger. Footnote: the deceased is here thought of, perhaps, as being able to see his people on earth, and as liable to anger, should he see them disputing over the division of his property, or if he perceives avarice on the part of the Lama conducting the funeral rites. But the prohibition touching anger is essentially yogic. Yogis of all religions recognizing that anger prevents spiritual progress, and it parallels the moral teaching against giving way to anger contained in the ancient Egyptian precepts of Tahotep. Be not attracted by it, be not weak. Believe in the dazzling, bright, white light, and putting thy whole heart earnestly upon the Bhagavan Vajrasattva, pray thus. Alas, when wandering in the samsara because of the power of violent anger, on the radiant light path of the mirror-like wisdom, may I be led by the Bhagavan Vajrasattva. May the Divine Mother, Mamake, be my rear guard. May I be led safely across the fearful ambush of the Bardo, and may I be placed in the state of the all-perfect Buddhahood. Praying thus, in intense, humble faith, thou wilt merge in rainbow light into the heart of Bhagavan Vajrasattva and obtain Buddhahood in the Sambhoga Kaya in the Eastern realm, called preeminently happy. We should stop there.
Paul had a question a while back, and we've been discussing it here. He says, here, I lost it. Okay. How is all this information brought back from the dead?
Mm-hmm. That's what I want to know.
I mean, how was this book written?
Yeah.
In the very beginning of the book, it talks about, we went over that already one time, several lamas in history stated that they saw on the other side into the Bardo, or their spirit went into the Bardo, their essence went into the Bardo, went through all the different stages and came back, and there were numbers of them over history, and they passed this down from one lama to the next lama to the next lama, and it was recorded at one period in time and then got translated into English in 1921. And the writings that are in here are very similar to the writings that are in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, but they just use different words, but they tell the same story.
They're talking about a state of grace, a point where grace is allowed. And here in Christianity, we say it is Christ that gives us through what Christ.
And the Buddhists would say it would be one of the Buddhists that would give grace. And so it probably depends upon which religion you're following, what happens to you at death, like we already said in the book.
So if we let go of our anger at that point, that will release.
Oh, you mean the grace part?
Yeah.
There, that's what it said there at the last. You can't have anger. You can't have an argument.
Yeah. And you can't.
If you've got an argument on, you can't go anywhere. You're in your argument. That's where you're at. The goal was liberation, and an argument is an obstacle. Okay.
Just like here.
Just like here. As above, so below.